Welcome to another episode of the Catholic Libertarian Podcast. Today I'm sitting down with Pete Quiñones. Pete, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I figured I'd start with reading a quote from 2 Thessalonians from St. Paul. The lawless one, referring to the antichrist, is revealed, the one doomed to patrician, who opposes and exalts himself above every so-called God and object of worship, has received himself in the temple of God, claiming that he is God. Given that quote, would you say libertarians are the Antichrist?
I don't think libertarians are the Antichrist. I think that they need a lot of work.
Yes, they do.
I think they're like the Christians that go to church on, or I grew up mostly going to Catholic school and going to Catholic church. And they're like the Catholics that go to church only on Easter and Christmas. Yeah. It's like they just give a nod to things that are important.
Yeah, I feel that. I joined the Liberty movement during the Joe Jorgensen. He brought me into the party, which is weird considering how much more radical I became than he did. And going from the hardcore conservative circle where everyone's religious to the libertarian circle dealing with the cringe atheists, like, oh, flying spaghetti monster, and God's an authoritarian, so you can't be a libertarian. It going from hearing that and going from the conservative circle, be like, oh, well, you believe in liberty, well, you can't be aware of Christian either. And then hearing the exact flip side when he got to the libertarian circle, it was just, yeah.
I know what you're saying. I hear it all the time from Christians and Catholics. So, yeah, especially a lot of Christians a lot of libertarians are just so cringe and so like teenage edgelords when it comes to religion or faith and everything like that. And it's pretty scary. It's pretty scary because some of them are so bad they make it so that I think atheists looking at him are like, wow, you're just an idiot. much less Christians or Catholics or anything.
Yeah. I always found it weird, the whole, given how many people came to libertarianism, true, Ayn Rand, Mary Rothbard, Mises, all atheists. But the people I know, everyone loves the Mises Institute, which Lou Rockwell, Catholic, Tom Woods, Catholic, Bob Murphy, Christian, Justin Partano, Catholic. It's like, all the best people in the movement are religious, but all the people who came to it from atheism. It's a weird divide I've noticed. What do you think of that?
I don't know. Maybe it's just one of those things that Christians that it had to come through that way. Mm-hmm. The good thing about it is like Hoppe, Rothbard, Mises wouldn't be openly hostile to religion, where you can't say that with Rand.
Yeah. I was recently reading Mises, The Last Night of Liberalism by I can't pronounce his name, and I'm not even gonna try. I wrote it, but he said in an interview that he would not be shocked because Mises tempered his anti-religious sentiment as he got older. Like, you read his view of Christians in Human Action compared to his view of Christians in the Theory of History book. His view was that it would not shock him to find, because Mises was so private, would not shock to find out if he had a late stage conversion, which I don't know. I can't test any of that because Mises is a private person. But it's interesting to see that even with the atheist ones like Rothbard, like you say a lot, he knew Calvinism. When he writes about Thomas Aquinas, he gets it. And the fact that he would spend time to read and know these things, and then so many other people write it off, and they're like I'm a Rothbardian, and then you write off Thomas Aquinas or the Scholastics when it comes to economics. Like, you're missing a very important part of economic history, and it's because it has tied to a religion. You have to they distance themselves from it, and it's very peculiar for people who claim to be intellectual and bright and just completely write off people associated with the biggest, longest lasting institution in the West.
Yeah, it's Christianity, the Bible, it's influenced so much. It's like people who are like, oh, Moby Dick, what a great novel. It's amazing. It's like, it's from the Bible. It's a story of Jonah, basically. Come on, give me a break here. So everything based, so the whole legals, even British common law. I mean, all this, everything is the mercy. I mean, any kind of punishment within the system, within the legal system itself, which I mean, I think our legal system is horrible. I think if you're gonna have to have one, and it's not libertarian, British, Old English common law would be the best. But I mean, this is all inspired by Christianity, and you tell them that, and they're like, "No, it's not." It's like, well, if you read the Bible, you'd know that. But I mean, it's just the best-selling book of all time, and the book that, like, pretty much anyone who's ever read it has been affected by it in some way or another, even if they don't believe. They find some value in it. But everybody's got to be edgelords. Everyone's got to be Peter Hitchens, what was it, Christopher Hitchens, and lock on to him. But it's great that people have Christopher Hitchens has been overtaken by, like, Jordan Peterson, and Jordan Peterson talks about the Old Testament and talks about the Bible, and who knows if he's actually a believer or not, but at least he's brought that into a lot of people's consciousness.
Absolutely. Those biblical series blew my mind. Like, I was a half-assed Christian, as I call it, and I watched those videos. I'm like, okay, there's something here that's besides this having a community to go to on a Sunday, and it really opened my eyes on all the led me to Catholicism. It just opened my eyes on so much, and it's really weird. I call them sophists. I know a lot of people hate that word, but a lot of the cringe atheists are just, that's what they are. They're assholes. And it's weird given the new atheism people, like not the new atheism, like Sam Harris, not those type, but the new ones, like this last 5 years, like Alex O'Connor, the cosmic skeptic, the vegan guy, or Ben Watkins. These new atheists that are taking the forefront of the atheism debate are very respectful, very kind. Their goal is to raise the dialogue. I mean, Alex O'Connor has a degree in theology. Like, he's an atheist who got a degree in theology to better understand religion. And so he's very respectful. And you would think that would, like, transfer to these people who actually claim to be atheists, would want to be like the forefront of the atheists, but they don't. They just want to be, like you say, edgelords. It's
the Murray Rothbard's and Ludwig von Mises' demeanor. Rothbard could be a little insane. Doesn't really, could be at times, but he wasn't like that with normal people. He was just like that with his contemporaries. They were generous and kind to everyone, and I don't think we do that. I think we, and I include myself in it, just have a tendency to really go on the attack. And I mean, the reason we go on the attack is because we're talking about things that are really important: murder, state-sanctioned murder, life and death. And it's hard not to, but we probably, I know I probably could catch a lot more flies with honey, but then again, I don't know if I got soft, I don't know how many people who listen to me would really like me. So be like, what's wrong with him? What? No. It's my personality, and I'm never going to be able to change it. All I can do is just try to temper it a little bit when it comes to, I can usually tell on social media when somebody's being genuine and asking genuine questions, or if they're going for a gotcha. So
I can't tell. That's the autism in here. I cannot tell. It's like I said, when I first heard of you, I saw you on Dave Smith's show, but talking about monopoly and violence, and I listened to 5 minutes and wrote you off as an atheist. I don't know why. Like you said, natural. It was a made-up fairy tale talking about inalienable rights, and for some reason my brain associated made up inalienable rights, atheist, and I wrote you off like an idiot. Like when I was going through the movement, I very clearly drew boxes around everybody, and all the boxes were inaccurate, and just completely missed you.
Well, I mean, really, rights are. It's hard to argue for, like, natural rights unless you already believe.
Yeah,
which I guess is kind of weird, because you can say, oh, well, thou shalt not murder. I mean, that's obvious. Everyone knows that. And then you read that there are still tribes in the world that murder people. Now just go tell them, hey, this is just natural. This is a natural right. everything. So no, it's something that somebody or a group of people decided was probably the most practical way, utilitarian way to construct a society. And they said, hey, I have a right not to be killed. And really the only rights you have are the rights that you're willing to defend.
Yes. That
and then then if that's true and you can't defend them, are they really rights, or is it just like a fantasy in your head?
Yeah. That's something that I came around to recently. I talked to Matt Erickson on the podcast, and he explained to me that we talked about rights, and he kept saying rights are responsibility. And I say it's talking like some Burkean, conservative kind of thing. But he said the rights are contingent upon your neighbor's ability to help you defend your rights or your power to enforce your own rights. And I didn't like it when I heard it, but it makes sense. It's like I think Jose Galison, he's the one who said it's not might makes right, it's might is right. Might is right. Like you can't just like property. How did Matt Erickson put it? Like you can scream into the void, I have a right not to be murdered, but as long as no one likes you, it doesn't matter. And I love natural law. I'm a huge fan. I have ethics of liberty. I'm a Thomas Aquinas guy. And understand natural law only makes sense if you believe in God or in some natural law to the universe. It was a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah. No, I still love listening to Judge Napolitano talk about natural rights. I mean, it's he's such a great speaker. It gives you chills. But when at the end of the day, when I think about natural rights, I'm not there as far as like 100%. I mean, Ethics of Liberty is probably my favorite Rothbard book as well. But I think that I think Hoppe's done some good work with the argumentation ethics to really help that along. But yeah, I mean, it's really if you don't have might, you don't have rights.
Yeah.
And what Matt said about responsibility is something that libertarians do not want to talk about.
Yeah.
But it's like, which is why I slowly drifted over to Hoppe, because Hoppe talks about that. He talks about how, if you don't have a sense of morality, if you don't have a center that that's based in the morality of nonviolence and private property, libertarianism isn't going to work. And it really goes to Hoppe basically promoting covenant communities. I think a lot of people who are anarchists believe that like there'll be like this huge plot of land, then it'll just be anarchy and there'll be no rulers. But I don't see it that way. I don't think that when it comes to not having rulers, I don't think that you can having people who don't fundamentally agree on morality, religion, things of the spirit, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't work. If it doesn't work with a government, if it doesn't work with a monopoly on violence, how does it work without one?
Yeah.
It just doesn't. So you're going to have a bunch of communities that are based upon belief and whatever they want. I don't care. Race, whatever. I just don't care about that. You just need to be with people like yourself. And then I think that's the best shot we have in 2,000 or 3,000 years, when anarchy will be palatable to a portion of the population.
Yeah. It's one thing when I first got into it all, I'm like, yeah, we could definitely get this in my lifetime. I'm young. We could definitely see it. And it's like, unless I get a bunch of wealth, power, and influence, and I get 50 guys to ready to ride or die and just go hide somewhere, it ain't gonna happen.
And
it sucks.
wealth, power, and influence is really, really, really important, and it can definitely buy you freedom, buy you liberty. But we also have to remember that liberty and freedom is different to everyone. I mean, if somebody believes that having their health care paid for and having their college paid for is like real liberty, how do you argue with that person? Why would you even want to argue with that person and try to convince them otherwise? That's where they're at now. I mean, I know there are people who used to believe that, who believe like I do now, that if you want those things, you're gonna have to trade or pay for them. But I mean, you're never the overwhelming majority of people are never going to think like we do.
Yeah.
So what do? You try and mitigate it as best you can. And I think Hoppe, his plan for what must be done and local politics is probably the closest chance any of us in this lifetime would have to even tasting, even if it's just like a 1850s kind of liberty, of course, without the slavery, an 1850s kind of liberty, then I think Hoppe is probably the best way forward.
The emphasis on local politics is why I left the Mises Caucus and went to so I do the paleo thing. I live in Florida, so Bishop is here. I'm getting involved with my county. I got Andrew from Popular Liberty coming on, talk about covenant communities, and I want to ask him a question about the anti-tax because that is really interesting.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It's the more I think about it and the more I go over it in my head. And he put a thread on Twitter yesterday answering some objections that I think were really, really good thread. I think that is, you have to, anything you do has to be palatable for everyone. And it also has to be something that, I mean, of course, you want to have a couple of your own people, 2 or 3 of your own people on the board of any local kind of government or anything. But I think that it has to be palatable for them. And I think Andrew understands that right from the outset. So any kind of strategy that he is constructing is a strategy that not many conservatives or Republicans are going to balk at, especially when you play, especially when you do, as Scott Horton said, you attack the right from the right and the left from the left. So if you come at them as a right winger and play to their right wing sentiments, then I think it's a positive.
Absolutely. And this is something a lot of people don't get, is that the conservatives they deal with on Twitter are not the same as the local Republicans in the county. Like a Republican and conservative is not the same thing. Like there's a lot of Republicans who are conservative, but like actual book style conservatives, there's not a lot of those. All the intellectuals in the think tank, but the actual Republicans on the ground, guns, lower taxes, no mask mandates or CRT. That's all they care about. You don't need to argue about book or all the other stuff with them because they don't know it. They just know Sean Hannity. And if you can speak that language, you're in.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Andrew. I think Andrew said that anyone who's in like a red county and decides they want to run for mayor or run for whatever, sheriff, especially sheriff, if sheriff has to be elected, and you just run on, there's going to be no mask mandates, there's going to be no vaccination mandates, and there's going to be none of that crap being taught in our schools. And the police force under me will do everything to protect you from that, even to go up against federal police if we have to. How does that person lose at this point?
Yeah.
And especially in a red county. I mean, I heard about this guy, Parnell. I can't remember his name right now. I think it's Sean Parnell, who's running for Senate out of Pennsylvania. And he was just endorsed by Trump. And I'm thinking to myself, that that Washington, D.C., the GOP are basically like controlled opposition for the progressive agenda and for the left center neoliberal agenda, even the right center neoliberal agenda. Why would you go to DC? I mean, you could run for governor of Pennsylvania on no mask mandates, no vaccination mandates, and none of that crap's going to get in our school. I think you're going to win Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
I honestly think you. I mean, I'm only an hour away from Pennsylvania, but my family, my mother's side of the family, is all from Western Pennsylvania. I know how those people think. I mean, they think they listen. They look at CRT or something like that, and they're like, "What is this garbage?" And they're like, "You're not going to be masking me up. If I want to wear a mask, I'll wear a mask. If I want to take a vaccine, I'll take a vaccine. Otherwise, you better." I mean, these are hillbillies. They're from Appalachia. They're not going to put up with that stuff, man. If that guy, if he ran like in Pennsylvania or even in his hometown as mayor, guy it'd be a landslide. I mean, so the only way to run nowadays, if you're going to run GOP or even if you're going to run LP, is I'm going to do everything to protect you from this. And
yeah, absolutely. It's when it comes to local elections, like I took some slack because I was very in the Mises Caucus. All my friends are in Mises Caucus, and I said paleo, and a lot of them did not. I got texts and long threads, and I had to explain to them, like, no, Florida's different. Like Florida, when it comes to Republicans in Florida, it's a different kind of Republican, you know? And I begin to notice when I talk to people, like, people who live in Florida and Texas, they get local politics a lot more, I say, than people who live in other states. Like when Andrew Popular Liberty said, if you try to run someone against DeSantis, waste bad access. Because he's coming out of pockets, people were messaging me and saying, "Hey, you got to push back on this. This is bad." And I was like, "No, he's right." Like, he's absolutely right. I quote tweeted him and said that, and I lost 4 followers.
Well, I mean, if the LP decided that they wanted to run a candidate against DeSantis, that'd be the dumbest thing. I mean, yeah, he's not a libertarian. Okay, I know that he's not a libertarian. Everyone knows that. No one is claiming it's a straw man if you say, "Oh, you just think he's a libertarian." No, believe me, I know what a libertarian is, and I've been around a little bit. So, but I mean, yeah, if the Libertarian Party runs against him, I mean, the only way I could see, like, if you did like a Machiavellian move where you said, "Look, we're gonna run a libertarian to the right of you, who's to the right of you." Unless you give us this, and this, and we need it now, not after the election.
Yeah.
I mean, even if they say no, even if he says go fuck, I'm sorry, even if he says go screw yourself, at least you tried.
Yeah. And I said that, and their argument was like, we're going to try to pull more from the left. I'm like, in Florida, you're not pulling anyone from the left. If they see DeSantis as their opposition, vote blue no matter who. We need DeSantis out of there. Like, they're not going to vote libertarian when they can get DeSantis out there and get that wits Nikki Fried. It's like, this is not
libertarians. Libertarians could pull people from the left in 2007. They could even pull people from the left in 2011. But what most libertarians don't realize, because I don't know why, is that the culture changed a lot. And you just lived through 4 years of Trump and you don't realize how much the culture changed. And pulling from the left right now is possible, but that is not your most natural. Everyone I talk to who like works with the right people on the right, like Tho Bishop, Eric July is another guy. It's Eric, you work at Blaze, you talk to right wingers all the time. Who are our most natural? Who are the people that we should, if you're going to be recruiting from outside of libertarianism? Because I mean, that's the whole LP thing is they're, and the LPMC thing is we're recruiting libertarians. I mean, that should tell you what people think about the Libertarian Party in the first place. I mean, they're not hiding that. So, I mean, I'm not gonna knock them for that. I mean, the LPMC is not going anywhere. I just would like to see them go in a direction that I think would be more conducive to success. And I have some ideas, and it's fine. and it's fine that a bunch of people in there hate me too. Now I don't mind. It's fine. You don't realize that I literally want to see you guys succeed, but it's going to take more than what I'm hearing in order to succeed right now. And I had a conversation with Michael Heist the other day on the phone for an hour and a half. And except with maybe one exception, we're on the same page with everything. So I'm good with the Mises Caucus right now. But the whole thing about, now that I went on a tangent, I completely lost where I was. I do that. Hanging around Scott Horton too much.
Yeah, I had him on the podcast talk about Star Wars, and he would go off on these like rants, and I would forget I was in the podcast. I'm seriously listening to him, and he'd pause, and I'm like, "What's he stopping for?" I didn't hit pause. Oh, I'm in this conversation. I have to say something. He's incredible.
Happens, yeah.
Yeah. No, to me, this caucus I have no problem with a Libertarian Party. Like I think that's a good idea if they were going to actually play like kingmaker and make, like be a place where it's like, hey, we want this, and this, and you're going to help us with this, or we're going to, fuck you over. Like, I think that's a solid strategy. Oh, but when they say we're going to win, it's like, okay, you don't have a lot of seats, affiliate seats, is, I think you can get in power on these people, become a libertarian dictator, and force these communities who don't want drugs in their community. It's like everyone knows, like, yeah, when we have anarchism, if you don't want drugs, like, what got me on anarchism was when Michael Mars said you could have rules, like no peeing in the pool, you can't pee in the pool. If you live in a gated community, that's so me on anarchism. Everyone knows you could have rules, and you have to agree to them. But someone, when it comes to being the state, it's like, well, no, you can't have people in the community care about not wanting drugs in their community or prostitution. So we have to force become a libertarian dictator. And it's like, how can you have a principle that you want to achieve in your utopia, but then not want to act it out along the way? I don't. That disconnect's so weird.
Well, libertarians also don't care about what Americans want, what their fellow Americans want. I mean, they're like, if the majority of Americans don't want open borders, libertarians don't care. They're like, screw you. Open borders is the libertarian policy. And I don't know where that, I mean, I used to believe the same thing until I really started examining it. And I'm like, the libertarian position is open borders. So you're saying there'd be open borders in Ancapistan? Actually, there'd be private borders, and people could decide if they want people to come on their land, but there wouldn't be any borders. So why is it the libertarian position now, but it won't be then? That's it. Well, just because the state exists? Okay, so because the state exists, you're going to ignore the fact that, maybe 52% of the population doesn't want it. Well, I don't care. We don't care what they want. I mean, that's just, you hate people. That's just hating people. That's just basically telling people, screw you. What you want doesn't matter. Instead of hearing them out and finding out why they believe closed, restricted immigration or strict closed borders. Well, why? And then listening to their argument and then dealing with their argument. And libertarianism has become so left wing that they immediately go to racism and you're just scared of people from different cultures. And I've traveled extensively outside of the country. I'm not scared of people from different cultures. I like different cultures, but there might be a reason why people don't want, there's a reason why it's really, really hard to move to Switzerland. There's a reason why. I mean, there's a reason why Switzerland doesn't have that EU open borders policy. Maybe ask them why. So, I mean, but they don't want to ask why. It's just, oh, you're a racist. You're, what's the word when you're scared of foreigners?
Xenophobe?
Yeah, you're xenophobe. Yeah. I'm totally blanked on that. But these are good questions, but everybody's become a leftist. So it's like, oh, obviously you're a racist and a xenophobe. Okay. Yeah. I mean, whatever.
Yeah, it's weird how, I can't remember what it's called, but it's one of those like political science laws where it's like any institution that's not explicitly right wing will go left.
Robert Conquest, second law of politics.
Second law, yeah. once I heard that, I started to notice it in every institution. I'm just like, oh, like
National Review magazine
Yeah.
was the one that was like, because I went immediately to National Review because I had been reading Rothbard's Betrayal of the American Right, and he talks so much about it in
Good
it.
book.
And I was like, National Review. Yes, 100%. Yeah, the Libertarian Party, Reason Magazine, Cato. I mean, all these, everything goes left if it's not explicitly right.
Yeah, and that's so weird because like the habit among people is to become more right wing as they get older. You know, like does that say like if you're not a Republican by your 30s, you have no. I can't remember what the quote was. Like it's weird these things. People when they get older become more and more right wing, but institutions as they go on longer go more and more left wing. Like it's a weird disconnect. I can't connect it.
Like the people, like when you encounter somebody who's in their 50s, 60s, or 70s who's like still a hardcore left winger, they're always kind of pathetic.
Yeah.
If they're not a politician, and if they're a politician, they're probably just acting. It's just the role that they've decided to play.
Yeah.
But when you like meet like a true believer, like you're like a neighbor who's a true believer leftist, and they're in their 70s, they're always kind of really weird. You ever notice that? They're just kind of odd. You know, they might have a ponytail, but that's like the only hair on their head or something like that. It's really weird.
Yeah. That's one thing being pathetic it's weird because like you go to a debate, you watch a debate on YouTube, and if you see one guy's in a suit and he's looking nice, another guy is in like a button-down t-shirt, there's no fit, there's a mess, and he has like a weird haircut. You go to the comment section, it's like I know who's gonna win. Like everyone knows who's gonna win. They want to watch the video because they look ridiculous, and you think being presentable, looking presentable, being not pathetic would be a huge thing. Like, oh, we'll try to convince people. Let's put our best foot forward. And no, they have neck beards. This neck beard atheists with the like my lady top hats or fedoras. It's I tweeted this the other day, and it's like libertarians love to be the smartest person in the room. That's why they never leave the basement.
That's pretty good. Did you see that the guy from the fedora tipping meme got COVID? It's like my lady. It's like my lungs, my lungs,
my lungs. Oh god. Oh, yeah. That's one thing that really drove me to the right when it came to libertarianism. Because I went from Trump, Yang, Jorgensen, like Sinner libertarian, and I saw how much more fun the right was having with memes. Like you compare Mises and like the Slup Gang people and the Ace and all those guys compared to like the leftist Cato types. Who do you want to be around? Fakotarians?
The leftist what types?
The Cato types, like the Cato.
Oh God.
Yeah. I mean,
awful.
Compare the Fakotarians podcast to Tarot Gang. What's one you want to be with? It's
one. The problem is one just takes himself way too seriously.
Yeah.
I think people have this idea that I'm just like serious all the time, and I'm like losing my shit and throwing stuff and just totally mad all the time. And they must have they haven't heard me on Slurp Gang or heard me on Friends Against Government podcast, or when Friends Against Government comes on my show and everything. And it's not me and Bird talking philosophy or something. I love to have fun, and I can have fun on Slurp Gang. I haven't been on Tower, but I could have fun on Tower. But I couldn't. I mean, Fakotarians would just be me. I would go over the top. I would like really like go way more over the top than I normally would. I'd probably just completely like, go like completely alt-right or something just to piss them off, because they're so humorless. They're so unserious when it comes to like the real world, anything about the real world. And it's
I never heard the term anarcho-tyranny in my political science class, so it's not a weird term. Like it's
anarcho-tyranny. Yeah.
It's like if I would never go on. I would never get invited. Hopefully, I won't get that big. But my
what?
Fakotarians. I never want to get invited. I don't want to get that big. I don't want to get associated with. I think I blocked all of them. Like I have an instant leftist block policy on Twitter. I don't want to associate with people at all.
I won't block leftists, like real leftists, but left libertarians. Oh, they'll get a block. They'll get a block in a heartbeat.
What was it? Tom Woods said recently. He tweeted out about John Stosser's executive producer saying COVID people to be unvaccinated COVID people to die. And he said left libertarians who have no value as people. I made that to one of those like synthwave Hansel and Hopper memes. Like they have no value as people, and like that is the greatest. I love Tom Woods.
Yeah, well, I mean, Tom Woods is getting more based as he gets older.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, they don't. I mean, seriously, what are they adding to the what are they adding to the conversation? And I know I'm getting a ton of crap for hanging out with what we're calling, we called it post-libertarian for a while, but I think that's probably too close to a Yarvin term. And
I have a term for
started talking about what
because it's all about tradition. I made this term when talking to the rad trads on Twitter. I was explaining to them that the reason your culture is gone is because of the government. You used to be against the government, like an anarchist, but still have your tradition. I call it anarcho-traditionalism and antrad.
Antrads.
Yeah, antrad.
Yeah,
it's my term for.
I have no problem with that, but I like the term Praxian.
Oh yeah,
because everybody's like, oh, you're just so black-pilled and everything like that. I'm like, we're concentrating on local politics. You're like, well, how are you concentrating on local politics? I'm like, well, how are you concentrating on local politics? I mean, it's like, I mean, I just released an episode with a local political strategy because you don't understand it, or you don't have the intelligence to understand it. That's not my fault.
Yeah.
I studied the Norwegian sovereign wealth fund for a few years ago, and I know exactly, because when I heard that like the Social Security account, the Norwegian, their version of Social Security made like so that everyone in Norway could retire as a millionaire. I was like, all right, I want to see what this is all about and everything. So I studied it. And then when Andrew started talking about it, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. It definitely makes sense locally. It would definitely have to have tweaks compared to what Norway did, because obviously it's going to be different here. And if you're using it at the local level and you're going to be using it in lieu of taxation, and you're going to be using it for spending, then there are other things that need to be hammered out. But yeah, I mean, that's a brilliant idea, and I can't wait to see it, put into play, and have it introduced out into the world and see what happens. Because, I mean, it's the closest. Yeah, I mean, we're Andrew, and I agree with him, not going to reveal publicly like the whole plan that we have. Smart. For how this works, because it's basically a play on Hoppe's What Must Be Done. And so it's like, you're not going to put it out there and play your hand, and then people are like, oh, we know exactly what you're trying to do here. But I mean, just putting out the sovereign wealth fund, that idea, I can't believe how much screeching it caused, because people don't know, people don't understand, I mean.
Well, I think that has more to do with Andrew being an engineer, and engineer types really get people. They rub people. My best friend's an engineer, and he is difficult to be around sometimes. Like engineers are the great people, very smart, but after they have the wrong kind of autism. they just push you away. Like it's. I have one more question. I think that's about all I had ready to go over. It's about left libertarians and rejection of like tradition. There's two kinds of I say there's two kinds of freedom. There is the right version of freedom, where it's like you are unencumbered, you are not being controlled by systems of oppression, kind of thing. Like you can go and get a gun, you can go and be free inside your community. And the left one is more like the postmodern, like, oh well, these are gender roles that are constrictive, and you can't be free when you have a constrictive society around you.
What's funny though is you said systems of oppression. That's also postmodern. That's something that Foucault looked at, and Deleuze. But yeah, that's interesting. But it always comes back to postmodernism now, because it's infiltrated.
Yeah, I have a weird view of postmodernism, because I was very against it. And I'm against it whenever it comes to like gender and all that stuff. But when you hear Thaddeus Russell talk about postmodernism, like in that debate he did for Soho Forum, it blew me away. Like it acts, his he's the only guy who talk about postmodernism, and I don't want to like just stop listening. And I don't know if it's just like he is the only good postmodernist, or if he's actually the only guy who represents it correctly. Like I don't know which one it is. It's
yeah. All right, so I'm sorry, talking about left libertarians.
Yeah, so the question was, left libertarians' view of freedom is like, I am free from social constraints, right? A right view of libertarians, I'm free from outside forces of like oppressive. Like how do I put this? I can go smoke a joint without having a gun put on me. You know, like that's right wing freedom. Left wing freedom is like I am free to be as degenerate as I want, and the social society coming after me is oppressive. What is there's a clear connection, I say, between like the atheist types in the left one and the conservative Christian types on the right side. What do you think of this? The connection between, and I'm rambling, the connection between left libertarians and atheism, and what? Because I know Rossbaugh means these are all good right, not right, but like good. Fuck. What do you think the connection between left libertarians and atheism and right libertarians and religion? Like, what is the connections between? I know Rossbaugh was a good libertarian, but he's also an atheist.
Well, I think there are a lot of right libertarians that would consider themselves to be atheists. I think the difference is in, I think most right libertarians are willing to understand that people are religious and that there is benefit in it. And that I remember Thaddeus said once that he thought that there were so many religious people at the Mises Institute because to live in an anarchist society and promote anarchism, you would have to be able to show that you were like a moral person and you weren't like, wanting to hurt people or anything like that. And that makes total sense. He's got it. He understands it. Yeah. I don't know if that is I doubt that's the motivation for their faith. I think their faith just comes from their faith is there, and it's somehow intertwined with all of that. And I think a lot of the people on the left, the activities that they want to participate in and champion are not activities that most Christians or people with an understanding of Christian morality who embrace it, even if they don't embrace Christ, they don't want anything to do with it. And they actually may think, the people on the right may think that it's detrimental to society. So drug use, prostitution, things like that have a tendency, and overwhelmingly, I mean, this can't be argued, I'm sorry, that it causes people to get hurt, causes addiction, causes all these things that basically make those people more reliant upon the state, would make them more reliant upon hospitals, Medicare, drug programs, things like that. And it tends to perpetuate the state and to actually grow the state. We call those high time preference activities. And it just seems that left libertarians want to celebrate that. And then when you're like, no, we don't celebrate it because it's, and I remember Tom got in an argument with some of the fucking retards on Facebook, and they were like wanting to celebrate sex work and everything like that. Sex work is work. Let's celebrate sex work. And he's like, no. And he made some analogy to skiing or something like that. I don't even remember what it was. And everybody just like lost their shit and everything. And I mean, the point is that libertarianism is always pulled heavily from the right. And one of the arguments has always been like, when it comes to weed, it's like, we think weed should be legalized. You're not going to force you to smoke it. We're not going to force you to celebrate it. And by doing that, you're basically eliminating, if your goal is to bring more people to understand our ideas, then alienating them right from the start. It's like the whole evangelical atheists in libertarianism who post anti-Christian memes on Facebook all day, and then they call themselves an anarchist or a libertarian. And you can obviously see that somebody who's religious and sees that is probably going to be repulsed by it. And I think that's a lot of conservatives view, especially like extremely online ones. I think their view of libertarianism is not that it's the Republicans that smoke weed, or the Democrats that like guns. And I think that it's gone beyond that, to the point where a lot of those people just believe that it's libertinism.
Yeah.
Or it's just do whatever you want. I mean, there are going to be we don't care about consequences for your actions as long as you're not hurting somebody else. Well, it doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't order. I heard Curtis Yarvin say recently, I'm always the most right-wing person in the room because I want order.
Yeah.
And order is extremely important if you want anarchy. If you want to live in an anarchist culture, order is going to be extremely important. And if you are participating in activities that aren't conducive to order, nonviolence, people acting wild, people, noise, complaints, things like that. I mean, forget it. I mean, it's like we have that now, but we have police to protect us. And why would I want to take a chance of not being able to afford a protection agency or something like that? So it's like, I mean, it's the way people think. And I have no problem with that. My faith is like the size of a mustard seed. It has been for a long time. And I just, but I side with, I'm much more comfortable in a room talking with, having a Bible, put it this way, I'm more comfortable having a Bible study than I am in a room with a bunch of people smoking a joint.
No, I feel that.
Yeah. And I'm not putting down smoking weed because I may.
Yeah. That's one thing I've had to, I do lots of conservatives on the right, and they really do see libertarians as libertinism. They really do. They can't disassociate. Like it's so binary. They can't see like not wanting someone to do an accent, but not wanting someone to have a gun shoved in the face for that same accent. And Thomas Aquinas, who was one of the big Catholic thinkers, he was very clear on it. He said we shouldn't outlaw prostitution because people are going to make mistakes because we live in an unclean world, and so we shouldn't be surprised when they make these mistakes, but we also shouldn't put swords on them for making these mistakes. Like, that's a very simple, like, I call it the Thomas Aquinas principle. And you explain this to people, and they're like, yeah, that makes sense. But at the same time, they'll agree with you. But when it comes time to actually, so we legalize drugs to people, or at least, I've stopped saying legalize. I've just started saying decriminalize. Like, I think that's a better way to get conservatives on board. And they'd be like, well, no, because all you're going to do is encourage people to smoke weed by not punishing it. And it's like, you need to have a social system around you that's not government enforced and government paid for, if you actually want people to get better. Because the government is not, it's an instruction for the government not to make you a better person. It's to make you a weaker person, taking profit off of you and keep your own welfare and continue to buy your vote with welfare increases. That's their goal. And conservatives, they get this and they understand it's in the structure, they all get it. And then the moment it's like, comes to drugs or anything, drugs, prostitution, they lose it. They immediately just forget it all. And it's really frustrating to talk to them because like you get it and they just lose it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only way forward, at least right now, is to try to get as many right wingers and left wingers. I'm concentrating more on the right, and right now I'm just concentrating really on trying to figure out a way past all this tyranny with this coronavirus hoax thing. Yeah. And as Dr. Paul put it, March 16th, 2020. But yeah, I would like to see more people come to embrace the ideology, but I'd also like to see people working locally And I'd like to see people improving their life and acquiring wealth. And at least as Jason Stapleton puts it when he talks about wealth is having the ability to basically work for yourself and to work from anywhere. And that's pretty powerful in this world right now. And it's really not that hard, because especially in the last 18 months with so many businesses going remote and everything like that, and allowing people to go remote, I think that it's more than ever, it's one of those things that you can pull off. You can, if you have the skills, if you figure out what your skill is and how you can make money doing it, and then you build it. It took me 4 years to get to the point where my podcast paid my bills. And I mean, it's like college.
That's so impressive.
It was time. Yeah. I mean, it was like, it's the same amount of time most people go to college, except most people go to college for 5. And I came out of it with probably more freedom, personal liberty than most people coming out of college do, because I don't have any debt. And I work from home. I don't have to worry about vaccine mandates unless they go absolutely tyrannical and start saying, okay, we don't care if you work from home. We don't care if you live in the middle of the woods, you're getting vaccinated.
Yeah. I got Jason Stapleton to come on the podcast, the 15th. We're going to talk about his ebook, Nomadic Wealth. And I'm excited to talk to him because I have a lot of questions about this. Like, he gets, I don't know why so many people hate him. So many music people just can't stand him. It bugs me because like, this guy is just about getting you actual liberty. And like, well, no, liberty has to be won through the state. It's like, that makes no sense. Like, that's so. Well, I've kept you here for about an hour now. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can, go ahead and plug everything. Where can people find you?
Yeah, Free Man Be on the Wall podcast. By any means necessary, that's my Substack, petequinones.substack.com. Support the show. My website, freemanbeyondthewall.com/support. And yeah, that's it. I have sponsors now, and I'm running ads. And
awesome.
If they sound good, investigate them. I'm choosing them very carefully. I'm not taking sponsors for things that I don't think. First of all, that I have to believe that there's something that I would use or that I would support, and it has to be something that I believe is genuine. So it has to match what people have started to call my brand, which I don't know what that is. So
being badass, that's the brand.
Thank you.
No problem.
I appreciate it.
Well, everybody, thanks for listening. It's been another episode of the Catholic Libertarian. If you wish to buy this hoodie, DM me. The website will be up. The website will be up soon, and you can start buying the merch that I'm putting out. I like money, and please help me with that. Well, everybody, it's been great. Everyone have a good night.